Hey everybody, I am so glad to be back. I missed you guys last week. Last week was the first week that I wasn't able to do a broadcast, and oh my god, that was difficult. So I'm excited to be back. I'm going to talk to you guys about, well actually before I do, I'm getting ahead of myself already. You guys know the drill. I see you guys are already watching. I appreciate that. Drop your city and state and let me know where you guys are watching from. I want to get into my mission really quick for all those of you who are tuning in for the first time. My mission is to bridge the communication gap between men and women. I feel like we both want the same thing as genders, but a lot of times a lot gets stuck, lost in translation rather. So I try to bridge the communication gap and I aim to teach emotional intelligence. I have a guest on today who's going to be talking a little bit on that with me, and so I'm looking forward to that. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and subscribe. All of my information on the socials is Chasing Yancey, so you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and most importantly, Instagram. That's where everything is happening. And if you guys are following on Instagram, you guys knew last week that I suffered, unfortunately, a back injury, and it took me out. So you guys are going to be able to be notified or updated rather when you follow me on Instagram. Sorry, I'm having issues with my little graphics here. I'm not exactly sure why there's a little bit of an overlay, so please excuse that, you guys. Anyway, what else do I need to tell you? Oh, so this is my big news. Also, if you were on Instagram, you would know this as well. I finally have my merchandise. It is available, and thank you so much to everybody who has made their purchase so far. I'm going to show you guys quickly what I have as far as designs. There are 4. So there are 4 right now. Oh, you know what? I have this new little blur. Let's see, I'll have to do it in front of myself. I have this little blur going on in the background. I'm trying this new feature on Zoom and absolutely hate it because you can't hold anything away from yourself. But the first design is Hope Dealer. And I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see it great because of this little blur, but you can go to Instagram and see it there. I might just have to take this little feature off because it's probably going to bug me. The other one is You Had Me at Black. You can see it here. Okay, it's showing you a little bit. The third one is Believe. This is the third option here. And the last one, that tends to be one of the top 2 favorites, is Be the Light. So all of these are available in t-shirts, hoodies, and crew neck sweatshirts. So if you want one, go ahead and grab one. Like I said, if you're tuning in, list your city and state so I can shout you guys out. And last but not least, before I get into my guest tonight, if you want to support me, you can go to patreon.com/Yancey. And those of you who are in Patreon, you guys can join my Sunshine Club that's on Facebook as well. All right, I've got a million things going on, you guys, so I feel like I'm talking so slow. There's such a delay tonight with my video that I'm even watching, so it's a little bit weird. Shout out to Rude Boy. Hey, 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 one of my favorites. He's always so supportive. All right, so let's get into my special guest. I have patiently waiting backstage. I have Corey. Hey, Corey. How are you doing, sir?
What's up, Yancey? Thank you for having me.
Awesome, awesome. I'm over here struggling with my technology, but I'm telling you, I don't know what I'm going to do when I get my actual crew because I'm so used to dealing with all the technical glitches. Oh, Lord.
Just means you'll be well prepared because you already know how to do everything.
I know, right? I appreciate you joining in. I have on the screen here your handles. People want to follow you on Instagram, but you also have a YouTube channel. You want to let people know where they can check you out on the tube?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is pretty brand spanking new. I shouldn't say I'm an early adopter. I'm a late adopter to YouTube in terms of having a channel. So you could just search Corey Kareem. That's Corey space Kareem as in Kareem. That's where you can find my YouTube videos.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and type it so it's in the comments below. For those who are watching on the live stream, you guys can get it there. And so you guys can just search and find his name. Obviously, it's written here as well, so you can look that up. Rude Boy says you're repping Canada, so you made his day with that one. Very nice. Are you really Canadian?
I am. I'm many things. So I like to say I'm Jamaican born. So shout out to all my Jamaicans as well. I'm assuming that's where Rude Boy is from, given the name. I was raised in Canada, just outside of Toronto. But I like to also say that I'm New York groom. I became a man in New York.
Okay.
That's where I got That's where I got my education. That's where I got my first job, so on and so forth.
Nice. Very nice. Oh, he said Jamaican Canadian too. So, hey, there you go.
That's what's up.
Very cool. So, like I mentioned, briefly a little bit, I had an injury last week and oh my God. Not only the pain, so the pain is frustrating in and of itself. I don't have to explain that to anybody. But for those people who do know me and follow me, pretty consistently, they know how much I love what I do. So it was absolute torture to not be able to do anything but pretty much watch Netflix. And which that's not good for my waistline either. I couldn't work out. I couldn't do the stuff that I loved. And it was terrible. I couldn't come on last week. And fortunately, my guest was so sweet. She's agreed to reschedule. But it feels so good to be back. So I just think it's so ironic that after I've had about 11 days of suffering, we're going to be talking about suffering. And I know this isn't a topic that's super sexy or glamorous, but I really hope it's something that can help people because a lot of people are suffering. And a lot of times they do it privately. You have no idea until later something comes out or what have you. You might see them on the gram smiling, posting their best pictures, their highlight reel, as I like to say. But a lot of people are really, really, really struggling. So I love the fact that in 2021, it's become pretty socially acceptable to admit that you're going through something. It's become okay to talk about getting therapy and help and all that. So that's the reason why we're having this conversation. And then, of course, as always, after the fact, I'm going to leave the back door open and let my friends sneak in. Whoever is there in the waiting room, when we're done, we'll have that discussion. So y'all know the drill. So let's get into this. Normally I would, ask a lot of questions, talk to you behind the scenes and get a lot of information, but I have not been, I've been bedridden, so I have not been doing any of that with you. So the only thing I really know is the content that caused me to reach out to you and want to have you on the show. So tell me a little bit, as much as you're willing to share, about your backstory and as far as what got you into this space and even wanting to produce content, because it's a lot producing content, and so you have to be really passionate. So what is your reason? I'm going to kind of let you take over a little bit.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for that. So first of all, I mentioned that, I got my education in New York. So I went to Brooklyn College and I studied TV, radio, minor in marketing and film. And so as a broadcasting student, I focused more on the business aspect, on the business side of the industry. And I also did production as well.
Oh.
But the business side is where I ended up. So I'm in the ad sales space right now, currently. Hence why I call myself a digital strategist. So I primarily work with digital advertising with major brands and mid-tier brands. So that's kind of my background and how I got started. So as a student, I interned at MTV, Atlantic Records, NBC, so on and so forth. So I've always had kind of the appetite for content, even though back then it was much different.
Yes.
YouTube was very baby at that time. iTunes was around, but no one really cracked the nut on iTunes yet.
Yeah.
And digital streaming as a whole. So I've always kind of had that background. In terms of why I'm doing what I'm doing now, it's just where I'm at in my life. I'm 36 right now. And, failure is something I'm very, I've been through a lot of different situations in my life. And I figure that, failure or suffering, if that's the topic for today, is something that everyone can relate to in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's from a relationship aspect, whether it's from a career standpoint, a health standpoint, it's something everyone can relate to. And the basic premise of the video, I think that you're referring to, is that we've been sold the dream that, life should always be about fun. Good times, great times. But in reality, suffering is a part of that package, right? Hence the Eastern philosophy of the yin and the yang, right? They come together, right? So that's kind of the background of how I got into the content and why I decided to start making stuff about that.
Okay. And I think it's interesting, for me, I don't call myself an expert by any means, but I do know that I've learned a lot in my almost 41 years, and my content.
What? Nice.
You're so sweet. Thank you. But
okay.
What I have learned, I make content for the Yancy of yesterday. So the person, like the content that I wish I had when I was going through what I went through. But I wouldn't change it. And most people who have gone through stuff would say, you know, I wouldn't change it because it does make you who you are today. And it's so cliche. It sounds so cliche, but it's so true. And I look at, oh, Natasha said, Canada's in the house. Man, I'm serious. Y'all are representing tonight. She's one of my fast approaching faves too. I love the people who are consistent and they like to, you know, chime in on the discussion. So the two of my faves right here, right now watching. But I look at the world around us and I do believe that we as humans have a lot in common with the other creations in the universe. And I look at things like diamonds, I look at things like gold, and I look at things, what's the other one that I use? It's slipping my mind right now, but gold has to go through the fire before it becomes anything that anyone wants. Diamonds have to be cut. So many things. Oh, it was a plant. The other one I use is a seed. A seed has to literally be buried underground and die. And when it rots, it then produces the green seedling that comes up and turns into this awesome plant or flower. So if we look at examples in nature, a lot of time, and of course they don't have thoughts about it. The diamonds aren't crying going, oh my God, I was cut, or gold isn't complaining about being in the fire, because obviously they're inanimate objects. But it's just a part of life. And, you know, I don't know why the things are set up the way they are, but like you said, that yin and yang, it is what it is. And I think that when we are able to just kind of get past it and embrace it, it is what it is, we can then extract some pearls of wisdom and we can use things to our advantage. So I want to talk about just in general, like what would you say that most people probably don't think about when it comes to suffering, or what would you want people to think about when it comes to suffering as opposed to the woe is me? And I don't want to belittle it and say it's not a big deal. Usually it's a big deal, but you got to focus on your power, like I say. So what would you want people to know?
Great question. So the backstep, I love the fact that you use different elements in life to compare to it. And one I'd give you that falls under your plant category is the Chinese bamboo tree. I don't know if you've heard that story or familiar with it.
No.
So basically, the Chinese bamboo tree, it takes like X amount, after it's planted, it takes like X amount of years. I think it's 5 years before it starts to grow. So someone who plants that seed that doesn't have that knowledge thinks it's not growing, but its roots are growing underground for 5 years because it has to support it once it, you know, breaks the soil.
That's deep, so no pun intended.
So a lot of what we go through is similar to the Chinese bamboo tree. We got to grow inside first before everyone gets to kind of see the fruits of our labor. So just wanted to say that that's really big. For me, I would say that, you know, so much in life we've been taught to kind of run away from challenges, right? And I've come to learn recently that challenges that's where the opportunities are.
Yeah.
That's where the biggest chance for growth, you know? And, you know, we want things to be so easy. And it's kind of, technology has spoiled us. We want things now, yesterday, last minute. But going through the process is what makes you that refined, whatever you're trying to be. And so I'm trying to reprogram my brain. And so things that are difficult, that are challenging, now I'm trying to run towards that versus, you know, let me get the hell out of Dodge.
I love that.
So that's one of the biggest things I would say to people now. It's kind of a paradigm shift, right? It sounds counterintuitive, but it's for me. I was telling to somebody that, you know, sometimes the best opportunities come out of the most difficult decisions that you have to make. It's just the way that it is. I don't know why it's that way, but like if you think of anybody that's doing amazing things, I promise you, they made some extremely difficult opportunities. If you think about now with like Corona and the pandemic, if you're a business owner and you had a staff of 50, you probably had to let go some people last year and you probably knew their situations, but it's like keep the business alive and everyone, you know, do I keep the business alive and save some jobs, or do I just try to keep everyone in the payroll and then my business goes down into the gutter? And so we all have to make difficult decisions. And I think it's just something that we got to remind ourselves that it's a part of the process. It's a part of life. Life isn't always supposed to be about pleasure. And if it was, then we'd have a difficult time knowing what's a blessing. If everything was always sweet, you wouldn't call it a blessing because it would just be status quo,
Yes.
right? So that's my take.
I really like that. And I think that having a realistic view of things helps so much. Like, for example, if you were to go for a ride in the car
Mm-hmm.
and somebody lets you know this is about to be a 3 hour trip, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
approach that trip differently than if you think you're going to the corner store. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to get the things that make you comfortable. You're going to do things to sustain yourself. You're probably going to use the restroom first, all those types of things. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like one of the coolest things that I've learned over time in my little 4 decades is that our minds are so powerful when it comes to our peace of mind. And
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that somebody could be in the most uncomfortable situation or circumstance. I'm talking to the extent of like being in prison or something like that. But if you were
Mm-hmm.
able to go to a different place in your mind, and I don't mean like being in La La Land and pretending you're somewhere else, but it's
Mm-hmm.
if you have the ability to train your mind and be disciplined mentally, you can deal with so much. And there's so many things that I want to share, and it's hard because I try to do really quick sound bites for
Mm-hmm.
Instagram or on YouTube.
100%.
People have very short attention spans, so I try to figure out a way to say it concisely. But a lot of the stuff is just deeper than you can do in a quick little video. But
Right.
I likened my pre-awareness time as I compared it to being on this crazy wave. Like if you're out in the middle of a stormy sea, it's the waves are really tumultuous, and that's
Mm-hmm.
how I felt. Whatever happened to me situationally, I was tossed like a little doll, rag doll,
Mm-hmm.
on this little
Mm-hmm.
ocean of emotional waves. And
Mm-hmm.
what I find so exciting is when I can harness my emotions and use them
Mm-hmm.
productively. And so what I really kind of want my legacy to be, or what people remember from my content, is how to get yourself together. It's kind of like that proverbial slap on the
Yeah.
movies where the person's flipping out and that person's like, get it together, Susan, whoosh,
Yeah.
to be able to do that to yourself when you feel yourself being crazy angry or, overly anxious. And I like to tell people that red flag for yourself is when you feel out of control, like when the emotion that you feel is something that you're not enjoying. You
Right.
can get yourself kind of back and centered.
Right.
And so I like what you were saying about it being part of the process, because if you go into life, or at least the next phase of your life, because most of us watching are adults, and you
Mm-hmm.
know that challenges are going to come, you can skip phase one of, oh my God, why me?
100%.
And just say,
100%.
okay, I'm about to come out so badass. I'm about to
Yeah.
come out a different person, a more chiseled person, in my emotional muscles, and
Yeah.
it just takes away,
Yeah.
I guess, the.
You hit so many points there, and you used one of my favorite words in the English language. Excuse me, and that's perspective. That's what you were kind of hinting on.
Yeah.
Once you're able to shift your perspective, you're able to see things differently. And when you said about, I think you're talking about like disappointment. Someone once told me years ago that disappointment comes in two ways: false information and false expectation. And you're talking about using the car ride analogy. If you know up front it's 5 hours, then okay, I'm gonna read a book, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna answer emails. But if your expectation was it's gonna be a 20-minute ride and it's gonna be 5 hours, then you're obviously in a different mind state. But yeah, to your point, I mean, one of the things that I think I was saying this to myself because I grew up as an only child, so I had a lot of time to reflect.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of time to do a journal, but in my head more so. And one of the things that I've discovered. So I meditate, something a practice I'm trying to keep doing consistently. And I'm an overthinker. That's one of my faults.
Guilty.
I try to answer a whole bunch of questions I don't have the answer to, and I don't have all the information. And I'm a creative, right? So my imagination is just super wild. I'll just start making up stuff. And I remember I was meditating, and what I received was, you don't understand how powerful your mind is, and because you don't know how powerful, because you don't understand how powerful your mind is, you will destroy yourself if you don't learn how to harness your power. And I think that's a word you just used. And I was like, okay, how do I harness my power? And then it came to me again during another meditation session. And it's like, focus on what you can control and let go of everything else.
Yes, that is, yes. Sorry, I had a little church moment
and,
about to throw my shoe at the screen.
No worries. And that's what I try to practice. Not obviously easier said than done.
Yes.
But like, what can I, Corey Kareem, control? And then I just have to learn to let go. And I recently also learned that letting go is a skill. Like, that is a skill. That's not easy to do. It sounds simplistic when I say it, but letting go is an actual skill you have to
yes.
develop. That goes from relationships to moving on to a different career, job, to people in your life, to every facet. Letting go is an actual skill.
Because you have to consciously do it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to choose. And I think that not only did I cut you off?
No, go ahead.
I'm jotting down stuff because there's, like you said, there were so many things you said I wanted to speak on. It's a conscious decision. And for me, like, and I don't even, a lot of times it's not a one-time thing. It's not like I took the trash out and then it's gone, it's out of my house. For me, letting go is repeated because I don't know if you're familiar with like a church background, but people say, leave it at the altar, you know, or like, don't be disrespectful. If you gave it to God, don't go back and take it back, you know? So for me, it's a lot of the worry and the things that I can't control. That is my barometer. Like you said, if I can't control it, I make a conscious decision, let it go. And, you know, I was talking to my girl last night, Sherelle, in her live stream, and I said, I don't care if I look crazy. Well, no one sees me, so it doesn't matter. But I tell people, so therefore they would know. But I will talk to myself out loud because I truly believe that we can brainwash ourselves for the good or for the bad. And so if I've decided to let something go, but yet I'm obsessing about it, I catch myself. I'm like, girl, no, we're not going to go there. We're not going to spend our energy thinking about this. And it's not instantaneous, but I do notice. And I'll tell on myself a little bit because I love that you said that this also applies in our relationships. One of the things that I found, you know, confession time, is that I was a control freak. I'm a struggling one. What is it called? Recovering control freak. And I realized it was because it was easier doing that than being in control of my emotions. So the more things felt out of my control, the more it made me emotionally unstable, feel emotionally unstable. And so I had something recently trigger me because things were not happening the way that I normally would regarding a dating experience. And so I used to be really extreme. If you did not act in a way that I felt was predictable and I knew what was happening, I would throw you away completely so that I didn't have to deal with the unknown. But obviously, not being a mind reader, you can throw away a good person because you're just like, well, you're just confusing me. And it was really cool because I made a decision to say, look, I don't have to put people, you know, in one category of this is going to be my forever person or even possibly. And shifting my paradigm to, or shifting my mindset to, let me just get to know this person as a person. And then put them in a category, which I think guys are masters at. They're very, very good at going that route. Like, you know, you ask a guy, well, what are your intentions? I really don't know. Like, I'm just getting to know you. And then as you figure it out, but it requires emotional intelligence because if you don't watch yourself as a woman, you can start to like somebody who isn't good for you or exhibiting certain signs. But if you have that emotional control to say, no, the jury's still out, we're not going to start catching feelings until we've done our research, you can have a lot more power. So it's been an interesting journey kind of figuring out why I overthink certain things and why I, you know, try to be such a control freak.
So I have a confession for you as well. Like, I recently started therapy. And, you know, I've done like the men's coach thing before. Like, I've had like a men's coach, life coach before, but this time I actually got like an actual like certified therapist. And it's funny, like, you come in there and be like, okay, I got this issue, I got this challenge, and then, you know, it could be like relationship, you know, whatever, and then you think like I said, I'm an overthinker.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, okay, I want to address this one because it's the most important. But then when you go through the process, you realize it all comes back to you. So the one question you asked me is like, you know, um, why did you make that decision in the first place, right? And like from a relationship standpoint, I figured out, my adult lifehood, I've only ever been single 3 years, and that's not even 3 years consecutively. I'm
Right.
like, do I have a fear of being alone? Like something that I wasn't even
Yes.
aware of.
Yes.
So sometimes it takes that, that deep thought process thinking, because I know in relationships, like I have a lot of friends that are single and they're dating, and sometimes they keep getting into the same kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I ask them, I'm like, in a polite way, do you think you might be projecting some of this stuff? And they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm just like, the last three kind of ended in the exact same way.
Right.
So, I mean, and sometimes, we are, a lot of us, including myself, we're broken.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't discovered that we're broken, and we haven't taken the steps to heal.
Yeah.
And I think until we've taken those steps, then more or less we're going to end up more or less in the same situation. Maybe a different guy, different girl, different state, different city, but it ends up being the same thing. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
I could not agree more on that self-love thing, or the fear of being alone. That was my journey completely. For me, it was like I wanted that validation from a man because I realized I wasn't validating myself. And it caused me to have this whole journey of self-love. Like, what do you love about yourself? And it's just when you dig past all the surface stuff and you realize the root, it's crazy to see how much is connected. So me not knowing my purpose, me not having self-love, it showed itself in so many different ways. I realized that there was a history of letting the wrong people stick around for far too long. It's like, those stories when you're telling your friend about somebody you broke up with, but as you're telling the story, you kind of look like a dumbass because they're like, so this happened in week 1 and you still moved.
You still stuck around.
Okay. And then and you want them to be on your side, like, yeah, they're trashless. And you're like, yeah, but that happened like a month in and you stuck it out for a year. Like, and I realized it was that thing in my mind subconsciously. It was like, well, it's better to have somebody, even if they're a jacked up person or the relationship is toxic. Let me not judge them. Even if the relationship is toxic, at least I have somebody. And when I finally got to that place where I thought, let me actually do the work. And I shut off all dating apps. I cut all the lingering, the people you can flirt with and stuff that are, you guys aren't in a relationship, but you can get that little ego boost. I cut all of it. And it was like, let me just be alone and have my space. And it was so cool knowing I didn't need it. It was like somebody weaning off of, a prescription drug or something. It's so cool to know you can still have the peace without having that thing to try to get you through. But I wanted to touch on something that you said. You were talking about focusing on what you can control what you can control. And sometimes I have to catch myself because when I get to a certain place of understanding, I don't want to sound apathetic. Like I don't care. I had somebody dealing with something and he was really, really frustrated about it. And all I could think of was, you're wasting your power. Like, you may as well have money on your seat of your car and roll the windows down because if you're, metaphorically, it's like the money's just flying out the windows. All the stuff that you're telling me and as riled up as you're getting, you're spending energy. You're spending all this emotion on something that you cannot control. And they kept trying to convince me of how wronged they were. And I was like, no, I literally get it. Nobody would argue with you. If we took a panel of people, they would all agree that this person totally did you dirty. But it doesn't serve you. And I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's like a neuroscientist, I think. I'm probably butchering his title. But he said something that was so profound. He said, your brain doesn't know the difference between your past, your present, or your future. So if you're sitting there replaying something in your mind that I like to say doesn't serve you, it makes you angry, it makes you sad, your body is reliving it because your brain doesn't know that was past tense. So if you're replaying your abuse, you're replaying the argument you have with your brother, you're replaying the moment the police profiled you, your
Right.
body is experiencing it again and again and again. And so
That's key.
isn't that crazy? So it's like we're experiencing all those emotions. And if people don't believe that, think about when you tell a story to somebody. Whether it's a happy memory, you're telling the story of how you met your wife, or it's a sad story, you're talking about how your parents, abused you or whatever, you will literally feel those emotions. You might even bring tears to your eyes. You well up with tears, you get a lump in your throat because your body doesn't know the difference. And so for me, when I'm going through something that I cannot control, I have to actively focus on what I can. Sorry to be so long-winded, but with my back, I could not move. I was paralyzed as far as pain. Like I could physically move, but it was so painful. I just couldn't. I couldn't laugh. I couldn't sneeze. I couldn't cough. It was so painful. And so after a couple of days and not knowing when I was gonna have any relief, I just went in my bathroom and cried because I don't want my little girl to hear me. And she did hear me, so she came to comfort me. But she was like, focus. She said the things I say to her. Focus on what what you do have, mommy. You have your eyes and your nose and your arms, and in that moment, I'm just like, okay, I just need a moment though to kind of feel bad for myself. But after I let it out, I was able to really think, okay, I need to focus because I felt like I was losing my mind, Corey. I felt like I was going crazy.
I believe, man, you hit on so many things there, and that's a nugget you just dropped right there. So I just want to call that out, that nugget from that neuroscientist, because I did a class or a course rather. So there's this forum called Landmark. I don't know if you're familiar with it. They run these classes all over the world in like 36 different countries, and I did like the intro class, and they talk about a lot of the stuff you're talking about, and they refer to it as a racket, a story. So everyone has a story. And so in this session I was in, this 3-day class, it's 72 hours. There's like 100 people in there. And this one lady went up and shared her story about how in her previous marriage, she was raped by her own husband, right? Which is a very serious, traumatic experience.
Right.
Now she's in a new marriage. She's 2-3 years into a new marriage. And her sex life was struggling because she was still holding on to that experience. She was blocking that intimacy. And, the guy said, I understand what you've gone through, but you have to understand that even though you have that story, you can either use it to empower you or disempower you, right? Hence, everyone has a choice. And that's sometimes a hard thing to say and to understand, especially if you've gone through such a traumatic experience like she did. But once that person can recognize that and say, yeah, you know what? Instead of using this against my new husband, I'm going to use this to go mentor to young girls that have been through the same situation.
Yeah.
That's the way to make it empowering to you. So, they call that a racket. You keep playing the same story over and over and over again. And it just, you end up projecting that. You end up attracting that back into your life, right? The other thing I'll say is, when I think about control, sometimes, I've heard, one of my friends, their partner, their girlfriend, she gets really apprehensive when other women come around. Like, wants to this is my man. Let claim it. Let you know that this person's off territory. And I always find it so fascinating because I was like, if he wanted to cheat, there's nothing you could do about that.
Absolutely nothing.
So, you thinking in that moment that's giving you power is false. Because if he wanted to, there's nothing you can do. Because at the end of the day, the only person you can control is yourself.
Yes.
Now, I never said this, but I was thinking it in my head. But it's always funny when I do see people, men and women, who get very protective around their partner. It's just like, dude, even if she wanted to or if he wanted to, he could.
And if I could interject this, if you think about a relationship, so let's say you're married for 20 years and the whole time you obsess about getting cheated on and you end up getting cheated on 20 years in. Well, you didn't even get to enjoy those 20 years. Like, whatever's going to happen is inevitable. It's going to happen. Right. If that's on your path or however that works. But you could either enjoy the 20 years up until it actually happens or obsess about it happening. So it was like that person didn't get to enjoy those 20 years because they were so obsessed. And they might say, yeah, but it happened. Yes, but you could have enjoyed that time up until that point. And by the way, I keep forgetting to say this. If you guys are watching this video and you're enjoying it, please be sure to click that like button so that YouTube will send it to more people and let YouTube know that this is the type of content you guys want to see and that more people should look at. So I think it's so important for people to just be in the moment. And for me, you know, I hate to admit this because it just sounds so terrible, but I really fight having a pessimistic mindset when it comes to dating. Because I have seen the same thing played out over and over and over and over again, there's a strong temptation to have an attitude like this when I meet somebody. Like, okay, I'm waiting for the shoe to drop. And I don't want to have that. And, you know, I want to give each person a blank slate. And even if the person 100% is that same thing that I'm trying to avoid that I keep seeing, I don't want it to jade me. I want to be able to look at it for what it is, which is that's that person's story. That's where they are right now. That's their truth, and not make it about me. And I think a lot of times we don't know how to separate ourselves from other people. And we say that thing all the time, hurt people, hurt people. Oh, she's so sweet. Natasha said she clicked like before the video even started. I love it. I did see that like actually before I went live, so thank you, love. But I think that if we really look at other people who do funky things as, well, then they're just funky and not take it personally, it would help us. Because if you look at somebody who, you know, had the last 5 guys cheat on them, while it does suck, you know, for lack of a 100%. More eloquent word, it does suck. It's not a reflection on you always. I mean, yes, there might be things that you could look at, but we oftentimes take it in when we shouldn't. And then the times that we should take it in, we don't. Like you said, when you're like telling your friend, maybe we could look at some of the stuff. But I think we get so bitter and we get so jaded because we absorb what other people are doing that's bad, as opposed to looking at them and feeling sorry for them. Like we look at a racist, like, that sucks for you. We don't suddenly start doubting that we're awesome as black people. We look at the racist like, you're a freaking fool. Like, you know? Yeah,
you're a clown.
Yeah.
But yeah, you hit it right on the nail. And the whole internalizing, you know, rejection or whatever it is that you're going through is a very big one. And I think all of us do it to some degree or another. And it does take that kind of self-awareness to kind of move past that. But to using your example, if someone's been cheated on, you know, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, that is a tough one to work through. And I get why people, the older we get, so I have this kind of weird theory, the older we get, the harder it becomes to date. And the reason why I believe that happens is because our circles naturally get smaller. We're usually not as social as we used to be in our 20s and college and whatever. And 2, we've been on this road of discovery that we kind of understand what we want. And so we kind of have this invisible list in our mind, and we're like, okay, he needs to check this box, this box, this box. She needs to check this box, this box. So you end up getting a short list, right? And sometimes, so I read this book called The Science of Happily Ever After. And basically he said, you know, you only get 3 wishes on your list. He's like, after that, it becomes really, really, really hard to get what you really want. So for example, if you say you want a guy that's above 6 feet, makes high 6 figures, and, you know, lives in your state or town, he's like, okay, those 3 you can work with, but you've already probably cut down the list of men by like 50%, maybe even more, depending on where you live. But then the more things you add on top of that, statistically, it becomes more improbable that you won't get that, because now you went from 50% down to 30 to 20 to 10. Now you just made it so hard on yourself to get that. So that's why for me, like when it comes to like stuff on like what I'm looking for on the list, it's all about attributes, you know, big heart, you know, growth mindset, someone I could pray and meditate with, you know, things like that, versus does she make this amount of money, or does, you know, he make this type of money and stuff like that. So.
Right. And I actually want to play devil's advocate a little bit about that as far as the word harder, dating becomes harder. I actually would think of it as we become more focused on what we want. So I agree with you on the, you know, ancillary things that are probably over the top, like color of hair and all that stuff, you know. But I think that we become, even though it seems like we have more options when we're younger, I don't think that they're viable options. Because when we're
Yeah.
younger, we might be looking at things that are just like how big her rack is or how big his muscles are or whatever.
Mhm.
And we're
Mhm.
not looking at the deep things that you said. What's her character like? What have you? So when
Mhm.
you do start to hone in on who you are, the people that you are attracted to and that you attract, I do think get smaller and smaller. So kind of devil's advocate, not really exactly, but I think that there
Mhm.
are positive. I guess what I'm trying to say is I think there are positives sometimes to that, that funnel coming down to a smaller and smaller opening.
No, 100%. And you hinted on something. You said, when you're going through your phase, you cut off all dating apps. You cut out the guys that you knew that, were friends, but you could flirt with them. And that's discipline, right? And I remember, I think I read something that said like discipline equals freedom. And so in order to get that, you need to be able to cut those things out and stick to it. So
Yes.
100%.
What do you? Oh, I'm sorry. It faded out. What did you say? What was the last thing you said?
I said discipline equals freedom, but I think you heard that.
Oh, okay. It was so weird because your video, I could see your mouth moving, but the audio, I forgot that that for some reason my video is a little weird today. Let me know, guys, if there's a lag in the audio and the video, or if we're timed up correctly on YouTube. Because for me and my little broadcasting software, it's like one of those Asian movies, the kung fu, where like the mouth and the voice is not lining up. But what was I going to say? Oh, I wanted to ask you this question. I'm going to take it like slightly off when you're talking about discipline. I had a conversation with my group. I have a private Facebook group, and we discuss a lot of things very candidly because we're all like 35 to 45 in the U.S. And so it's a very, specific population of people. Okay, he said it is a little off for him. So I asked a question, and this is regarding men and sex. So I am going to generalize because this is something that a lot of guys do. But a lot of men are ready for sex sooner than the woman is, at least from the people I've talked to. And even if the woman does want it, it's the sooner part. So she's not usually ready on that first night for whatever reason, socializing, blah, blah, blah. But I posed the question to the guys, and I said, if you had your dream woman, like she's everything from top to bottom, personality, looks, everything, proximity to you, but you found out that she was abstaining for a period of time, how long would you be willing to go? Like, what's the maximum time? And people were throwing out there like 30 days, 3 months, and things like that. What are your thoughts on, and this isn't like a sexy, no pun intended, this isn't like a sexy topic because we live in this day and age about if it feels good, do it, whatever. But what do you think when it comes to men and their ability to discipline themselves? Because, and I apologize for being such a long-winded rant to this question, a lot of men will say, I regret sleeping with this person, or I regret spending so much time chasing tail because it took me off of my purpose or what have you, even if the woman wasn't toxic or something like that. But what do you have to say about just kind of the state of where we are as far as men and this insatiable appetite for sex, especially right away? Like, just what are your thoughts in general on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I really think it comes down to where that individual, that man is at in his life, in his career. For someone like me, I'm so like career driven. Like that doesn't do it for me right now. Maybe if you caught me in my 20s, for sure, I'd be that guy within 30 days or what have you. But that wouldn't be who I am right now. And I think, and in all fairness to men too, you got to look at how society is based. Like we live in a sex-driven culture. Sex sells, as they say. So, look, what was the song that won a Grammy? Wow, right? Like, I mean,
yes,
or whatever music award show it was. So it's in our face, inundated every day. And I saw a podcast earlier, I think it was last month, and the guy says, like, if I was a young man today, meaning under 30, I wouldn't get married under 30.
Yeah.
Because in today's day and age, you talked about apps, the access to sex is 10x what it was when I was growing up, right? So, I mean, it's just too easy right now. It's that, and that's part of it. Right? You go on Tinder and whatever other apps and whatever other site, it's too easy.
Yeah.
So, for me, though, if a woman told me, and she was my perfect girl, perfect woman, like you just mentioned, here's how I'd answer this. I recently wrote something down in my book, and it said, um, it was talking about not settling. And I said, not settling to me doesn't mean waiting until you get everything you want. It means waiting until you meet the person that you're willing to do anything for. So until you meet that person where you're like, you know what, this chick right here, 100. If that's what her thing is right now, and she's saying wait till marriage, I'm game. And no one can decide that for you except for you.
Yes.
You got to feel that. It's got to be natural. It's got to be organic. So until you feel that, then I think that's when that comes
up. I posed the question to the group. I said, do you feel like you're in control when it comes to sex? Because if there's ever a time, like I started out by saying, if you have an emotion that doesn't serve you, if you have an emotion that makes you feel an unpleasant feeling, and you continue to do it, that's the sign that something's a little out of whack there. And, when I posed the question about sex, because it's painted in our society like it's just amazing, like there's no downside, it's just awesome, But when you really look at it, there are a lot of problems. And I think it just comes from a lack of self-control. And you look at these people who, they're having unprotected sex, maybe they're getting a disease, or maybe they're fathering or mothering children that they did not intend to do, or they're getting caught up with somebody that they didn't want to be emotionally attached to. I'm not anti-sex, which some people might just think I am. I'm anti being out of control and undisciplined. And so if sex is not serving you, if you are, cheating on your spouse and risking ruining your home, if you are, fathering children you didn't want to father, just all these things, I think a lot of people are not honest about being out of control when it comes to sex. And I think that it's kind of a, what is the word? It's kind of a replacement for something that they're missing in life. Like for me, 100%. I didn't struggle with sex. I can't think of the word. I didn't struggle with sex, but I struggled with the relationship. I struggled with wanting that validation, wanting to have that guy there. I could go without sex, because my faith, and I want to feel secure before I go there. But with guys, I think a lot of guys use it as an ego boost. I think they use it as validation. They use it as like, oh, I could pull this person. And it makes them feel like they've achieved something. But I don't think that they ultimately want sex, if that makes sense. Because obviously a man, it feels good, whatever. But I mean, ultimately, I think they're trying to get to something and they see sex as a way to get there, as opposed to enjoying sex for what it is. And I'll liken it like this, because I feel like I said it in kind of a confusing way. You might like food, but if you're eating food to the point where you are now becoming obese and now you're having health issues,
right,
it's become unhealthy and you're not moderating your intake, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No, I get what you're saying. I think, for guys, I think you're just touching on this. And there's only two ways to really disrespect a man. I'm going to tell you what those two are. One, you poke fun or you get at his ability to provide as a man. So you're talking about money, right? Or his ability to take care of his children, his family. And the other one is his performance in the bedroom. So when people talk about men are simple, that's it for us. Anything outside of that is noise to us. If you poke fun at those two things, and granted one of them is true, you best believe that guy's going to respond in some type of way, right? So that's why for like men, that whole sex is validation thing is somewhat true to us. Now, again, it depends on where that guy is on his journey, because there's a audience of people that believe in this kind of pseudoscience is called like no fat or semen retention. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but but it kind of ties into, I don't know if you've ever read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He talks about sexual transmutation, right? How if you conserve that energy and you use it towards whatever you're trying to build, whatever that is, you'll have a lot faster, more results.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of Like, because at the end of the day, sex is a transfer of energy. And that's also why athletes, especially like UFC fighters, they don't have sex
Yeah.
before a fight because it depletes their energy, right? So it's a once you understand that and you
Wow.
understand the things you can accomplish that when you can harness that again, going back to harness that power, if you understand that, then you're wise about who you have that exchange with. And a lot of guys, to your point, they don't have that discipline. You know what I mean? And I think it takes a certain individual that's just at a certain phase in their life. They're like, yo, I've been there, done that. I got the
Yes.
t-shirt too. I don't really need to be messing around. They still like the validation. They know they could if they knew that they know they could,
Right.
but now they're just like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'll later something.
And I want to unpack that a little bit. And I know for me, like if I'm in an unhealthy relationship or even just an exchange, conversation, things like that, I feel drained, like physically drained, and I can feel my energy going towards that toxic situation. And so for me, a lot of times I love the times that I'm single because I know that my day will be even keel. It's like I know what to expect. I'm not having those crazy highs or crazy lows. But I want to talk about what you said about guys and the validation that money brings and being able to provide and then being able to perform in bed. I think that when a man can have things that he wants to accomplish but not see them as his identity, he is going to be a lot better. Because if your identity is wrapped inside of success, that is something out of your control. You could lose it all. You could be robbed. Anything could happen. I mean, coronavirus. And it's not a matter of you just being lazy or not being smart. Sometimes life happens or you get really sick and need to pay for your
100%.
medical bills. And then with sex, that's being reliant on a woman to validate you. And I think that,
100%.
for the men listening, I really want that to kind of sink in and let them know, hey, take pride in what you do. That's something you should definitely be, have pride in. I take care of my family. They're not struggling and things like that. They're not in need. But when you need something outside of you to validate you, someone else or something can take it away. And so if you're not getting that sex, you feel less than. And if you don't have that income or that the accolades, you feel less than. And I think that women, we have our different struggles. We often feel validated by getting picked. If a man picks us,
Pick me culture. Pick me culture.
It's like if you're single, people look at women like, what's wrong with you? If you are single as a guy, it's like, dap him up. So women, we have a lot of pressure to be picked and to become mothers. And so if that's where people have their identity, if they don't have those things to validate, it can lead to, really depressing states of mind.
Yeah, and I think you said it very well. And I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to culture. Because right now there's two popular phrases that are being constantly shot around on social media. That's high value man and modern woman. You keep hearing those same terms over and over and over again. And I don't know if you're on Clubhouse, but I've hopped in a couple of different chats and talking about high value man. And it's funny how it always, for the most of the conversations I've heard, it almost purely comes down to money. And the one question they never actually asked in those conversations is, what? Let's say he makes $300K a year,
right?
But he owes $250. You're talking about how much money he makes, but not how much money he owes, or his
living expenses.
Yeah, or he makes $300K a year, but has 10 kids.
Right.
I mean, you know what I mean? You keep talking about how much.
That's a really good point.
But what's his situation, right? And it's like again, you're talking about people end up in the same situation. I think it comes from that antiquated belief where we're talking about our grandparents' generation, where the man has to always provide, but people are not putting it into context. Back then, women had very few opportunities; they couldn't even vote. You know what I mean? So of course they had to depend on the man to provide your grandfather because there wasn't much opportunity. We're in a different time now where women technically don't even really need us. Even if you wanted a child, you can go to a sperm bank and have a job. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a completely different era, but it's just always interesting to me to see how it always comes down to money. But money, again, referencing that book I just mentioned, the Science of Happily Ever After, it says money only increases the happiness in your relationship only up to a certain point. And that point is whether you are struggling to put food on the table or pay the rent. After you guys make like 100K a year each, the guy who makes $1 million a year and the guy who makes $100,000 a year, the happiness is incremental at that point.
Right.
It's not significant. So it's funny how everyone's focusing on that, but that's just a part of the equation.
Yes.
You've seen how many people on social or in Hollywood make millions of dollars, or how many entrepreneurs that make billions of dollars and they commit suicide.
Right.
They arguably had everything you could want in life. And in fact, Jim Carrey had a quote recently. He said, "I wish everybody could make as much money as they've ever wanted to, travel wherever they wanted to as soon as possible so they could see that it's not what you think it is."
And people like to say, oh, sure, it's easy for you to say because you have it. But it's so true. If they could, they would see. And you look at anything in life, anything you like when you're a kid, most kids say, Mom, can we go to McDonald's? The mom says, do you have McDonald's money? But once you get older and you can go to McDonald's as often as you want to, you don't go as often as you think you would have as a kid, because once it's not novel anymore, psychologically it just loses its appeal. And I think that, people look at either money, fame, success, because sometimes it's not even about the dollar amount, it's just having that title, like I've achieved this level. Status. Or whether it's sex, or sometimes it's alcohol and drugs and things. There's this illusion that if I get this thing, I will then feel whole inside. And to me, I always go back to, we are spirits having a human experience. And until people realize that we are spirit, they're not going to realize that void is spiritual. And so everybody has that void, but they fill it with the drug of their choice, whether it's the fame, the idea of money, the idea of sex, popularity, whatever. I guess fame and popularity is kind of the same thing, but that's where I think it comes from. So we are like hamsters on a wheel, spinning our wheels, trying to get to whatever our drug of choice illusion is. And then when we finally get it, we're like, oh, it's not what it's cracked up to be. I still have that void. So, that's why that's so important to me, for people to understand the psychological aspects, that come out in different ways. Like, I might have thought, oh, I'm upset because I'm single. No, I'm upset because I don't love myself and I don't know who I am. I don't know my identity. So, we deal a lot with the surface things, but we don't get down to the root of it. There was something that I wanted to ask you about. And I lost it that fast. I can't think of what it is. I'm trying to think. You were saying... Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. I said it'll come to you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what you were talking about right before. We were talking about making money and thinking that you'll be happier. Yeah, I cannot remember. But I did want to say, so tonight is a little bit different because normally I'll have either or. I'll have a group chat or I'll have people on. And so I'm going to check to see if anyone is waiting. I know at one point I had somebody in there. I'm going to see, because we might actually just wrap. Okay, I'm going to let her come in. Let me go ahead and just hit that. But I'm going to start to wrap this conversation here, because I can't believe it's already been an hour. I had a lot of fun with you.
Likewise.
Thank you. Okay, let me go back to the screen. There we go. All right, Jen, I just brought you on. If you are near your camera, she's been on standby for a little while, so we'll see if she comes in. But I think this is helpful. I think it's really cool that, hey, Love Bug.
Hey.
I think it's really cool that people...
What's up, Jen?
Hello.
This is Corey.
Hi, Corey.
I don't know how much you heard about, what we were talking about. We started off talking about suffering, and then, we covered a lot of stuff. But I really think it's cool that it's become more popular to really unpack and to get to the root of the issues, because a lot of us are suffering on some level. And even though some people are in denial and they project it on other people, well, it's all these people and things that are wrong, when the reality is, if you're happy, your circumstances are less important to, what's going on.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. I was watching, and then I stepped away. So I don't know the last topic that you all mentioned, but it's very true. And I do encourage my children to it might not go the way as you plan. Like, you know, you might not get the outcome, but to always express yourself.
Yeah.
I mentioned to someone a while ago that my daughter and I weren't getting along when she was like 9 or 10. And finally, I was like, listen, let's do a project. You write down 10 things about me that you don't like. You won't get in trouble. I'll write down 10 things that I don't prefer you do. And we discuss them.
Yeah.
1 through 10, you know, and at least we'll know how to deal with one another. And if you're unaware that there is an issue, how do you solve it? 100%. You know, so, and that goes across the board with anything. If you don't know that there's an issue, how do you resolve it? So it is definitely important to unpack serious, like,
I think
that my voice here.
I think what you just said was gold, because I did a video that kind of touched on that. And what I was saying is, most people don't intentionally want to hurt one another, but they're afraid to tell each other the truth, because more often than not, the truth sucks. Let's just be real. We always say, you know, honesty is the best policy. But yeah, okay. Let's say you tell someone something you know they're probably not going to want to hear.
Until they make you angry, and then it's diarrhea of the mouth. It's like, how long have you felt this way? You know?
And by then your tonality's off. You know, it's just
absolutely.
And now it ends up being a bigger thing. And I think, you know, when I look at those situations, the biggest thing behind those situations is fear, right? Fear of criticism, fear of hurting someone else's feelings, fear of the backlash or the outcome. Fear is behind it all. And, you know, I think, Jonty, you were saying this before, we live it twice. Like you, I identify as a Christian, and then I go to Elevation Church Online, which is out of North Carolina, with Pastor Stephen Furtick, and he's talking about what's the point of living it twice, once in your head and then it happens in reality. You just wasted efforts, you know. You know, just focus on what you can control, let go of everything else.
Yeah. And I like how you started out at the beginning, just talking about this is part of your journey. He referenced was it bamboo tree, Corey, at the beginning?
Yeah, Chinese bamboo tree.
Chinese bamboo, and he was saying that for the first, correct me if I'm wrong, first 5 years, everything happens below the surface, so it's all the roots. And so what I want to kind of leave people with, because I'm going to actually wrap this here, because I think it was kind of like a good ending, and I forgot today earlier, it's Easter. That's probably why a lot of the people are not available today. But if we can look at life as it's above and below the surface, a lot of times, you know, we're celebrating when we see that sprout, we're celebrating when we see that plant, and everyone's making this big deal about the flowers, but we're not valuing what's happening below the surface. And I have a girlfriend who I was kind of trying to encourage this past week, because she's like, man, I'm seeing you on your journey and you're finding yourself and you're figuring out your purpose, and I just feel like I'm behind. She's a little bit older than me, just slightly. And I had to remind her, I was like, it's not the starting point in life when you figure out your purpose. Just like the wedding day is not your starting point for a woman in life. Like, you live all the way through. And so you're just in a period right now where you're developing and you're growing. And then when you do reach your, you know, you figure out your purpose, you're still going to be developing before your next period. And so next phase, or, you know, of elevation. And so I want to encourage people who are comparing themselves to their neighbor, comparing themselves to people on social media, and you don't realize where everyone is in their journey, and you don't know their backstory and what it got to get there. And so if you're in that roots phase, you're in that developmental phase, give yourself mercy and understand it's truly not a race, because at the end of the day, it's not about how much money you have, though yes, you should be able to take care of yourself. You should not be, you know, a burden to somebody else if you can help it. But at the end of the day, just focus on how peaceful you are. So, you know, as far as looking at it like how we do in America, everything is about what kind of cars do you have and what kind of house do you have, and, you know, what do your kids look like? Focus more about how peaceful are you, because even the wealthiest, most famous people
Absolutely.
are some of the
If
saddest,
they're
most
unhappy.
depressed. Yeah, and they would do anything to have your peace. So don't rush the process. Understand those roots are happening and they're going to be so strong. And then when you grow, you are going to be grounded. And then when those things come in the time that they're supposed to, you're not going to get picked up by a strong wind. Because if you grow too fast and you don't have those roots that are anchored down, you're going to get ripped up out of that soil and be flying in the wind.
Amen to
Absolutely.
that. And I like how you brought up the comparison kind of analogy because I heard once, when you compare yourself to someone that you're doing better than, you're going to feel better about yourself than you should be. And when you compare yourself to someone that's doing better than you, you're going to feel worse about yourself than you should. And at the end of the day, I think everyone just needs to run their own race.
Yes.
But the problem that I'm now starting to figure out is people don't even know what their purpose is, and so they're trying to live someone else's dream, right? So they're seeing Yanti blowing up on YouTube, on Instagram, and they thinking, "Oh, I got to do that because look, it's working for her," and they try to do something, and that might not even be their calling.
It wasn't for them. Yeah.
Not only that, but they don't know her prefaces. It's
Right.
like what happened to her as to why she decided to release, or how a lot of these people became famous. What did they sell? Their souls or their bodies? Or
Right.
in a lot of instances where that when they finally do get popular or famous, they hate themselves
Yep.
because they're no longer themselves. They're living a life through what these people that they've sold their souls to are doing, and they're no longer, they're at their beck and call, not their
Yeah.
own, so
Yep.
we always look at people, and that's why I hate the question, who are your role models outside of family members? Why are we looking outside of ourselves and our own upbringing as a role model? Because we don't know what those people have
Nothing.
done to
Yep.
make that amount of money, or what did they sell, or who did they sell, or especially in Hollywood. And that's a lot of, we look at entertainment and entertainers as role models, and I'm like, that's the worst thing.
You don't know anything about them. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So I hate that question. I loathe at that question because nobody,
It's so funny you bring that up because at the top of the show, I said I used to be an intern at Atlantic Records when I lived in New York. And I remember as an intern, one of the top music execs came in and told the story of Little Kim. And it was the most fascinating story because they said that, she was nothing like her raps. Biggie wrote her raps for her. And it's like, this is the image. Because at the time, Adina Howard was like the thing. And she was like the proxy, the comparison. So you want us to be a female rap artist, you're going to get into this sexy lane. You got to do it like Adina Howard. So they wrote her lyrics for her. And eventually over time, she became what her lyrics were. She was just a girl working at Bloomingdale.
It's funny you mentioned that because when I watched, I don't know if it was his documentary or her documentary, I saw that she was in private schools, and I'm like, how did that turn into?
She was a regular girl from around the way.
How did Kimberly Jones turn into Little Kim? So that's wow, yeah.
The same thing with
That's why she was unhappy with herself, because she has to create this new image because she was not the person she was looking at in the mirror anymore.
Yeah, it's such a cliche story that a friend of mine posted an interview, or like it was like a documentary type thing where the original member of the Black Eyed Peas was on before Fergie came, and she refused. She's like, I'm not gonna do this sex image, because she was so deep in what she stood for, and she's like, it's downplaying it to put me into like the sex object role. Like, I have something to say, our lyrics mean something to us and all that. But that is like the oldest story in the book as far as the record companies. To me, it's like they don't like to steer too far from the tried and true method, but then again, they don't try other methods, so then that other method never gets tried and true. And you hear story after story of these artists who finally become, they're done with their contract or whatever, and then they start actually doing their own sound. It's totally different. Their audience is confused. They're like, honey, that was never me. But they end up being successful because their talent was that. It was them and their uniqueness. And so, you know, it would be nice if more record execs and people who make movies and things like that were more comfortable branching out and doing unique stories. But you know the drill. Like, if something works, they're like, we're not going to change
like
the model.
The Rihannas, the Britney Spears, the
Christina Aguilera.
Absolutely. They all were out of their elements and ultimately could have become a lot more successful. Well, Rihanna,
she's up there.
This IDAGF role now, you know, where I'm going to be me. You know, if you don't like it, then deuces, you know. But it took her a while to break from that pop role, you know. It took her, she actually had to not care, you know, and just unleashed herself. Yeah. But she too, you know, had painted an image for herself that she was not. And now she's living life carelessly, you know, not carelessly, but you get
without a care.
Carefree.
Yeah. And I kind of equate that to like the I call it the Oprah Winfrey effect, as in, if you understand Oprah's story, you know, she was a journalist in a small town station. Then she got the show, the Oprah Winfrey Show, but it wasn't under her company name. And then through having years of success, she was able to own her own production company where that show was under her name. And now today she owns her own channel. So a part of what we're all saying is sometimes you got to play the game.
Yeah.
Build a brand. That's what a lot of artists do. They play the game until they build a brand, until they can do whatever they want.
Absolutely. But you have to hold tight to who you are. And that's what a lot of people aren't able to do. They can't stand true to themselves and their values. And if you have any values, a lot of people don't have any values anymore. So they don't have, it's like, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And that is very true to a lot of celebrities. They don't have anything, a ground to stand on, to hold on to that, so that once they do reach a certain peak, they can go back and say, okay, now let me show you who I really am.
Let me reintroduce myself. Yeah.
Because they become the people that they are currently.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Well, I appreciate you guys so much coming in on an Easter Sunday. This was really fun. It was funny. I think it was Natasha. She said something like, oh, we're going deep today. And I know I'm all over the place. Sometimes we come in and we're turning up and drinking and having fun and being silly and kikiing. And then other times, like tonight, we're going a lot deeper. So I appreciate everybody who stuck around. We had a lot of people who did stay and watch for it being a holiday. And I really appreciate that. I'm going to do the little closing little pieces before I go, but before I do, I want to say thank you so much to you guys for joining me.
You're welcome.
I'm sure I'll see you again next week, Jen. And Corey, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm actually going to hit you up after the show finishes airing. But I thank you for what you brought. And did you have anything that you wanted to promote before I let you guys go?
Yeah, so if you guys want to find me, I know you put the socials up. Corey Kareem on Instagram. Dropping a new episode for my podcast, 3 Questions by Corey Kareem, tomorrow on Spotify and Apple. If you just search Corey Kareem on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you'll find it. And again, thank you for having me.
Perfect. And just go ahead and shoot me the links, and I'll post any links that you have in the description of this video. So in the next couple of hours, you can go back and check the description. So Natasha said it was a great conversation. Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys who are watching. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And guys, I will see you next time. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. All right, guys. I really appreciate you guys coming on. I said you guys so many times. Thank you. Let me go ahead and adjust this screen. I forgot. It's going to mess with it. Just a moment, you guys. Hold on 1 second. Y'all pray for me that I get my tech team soon, so that I don't have to do everything by hand. All right, here, slowly but surely. All right, we're getting this together. All right, guys, and thank you for enduring this hideous background. Tried something new, but I'm gonna be getting some new software this next couple of weeks, so hopefully it'll look a little bit better. I want to invite you guys to check out the Sunshine Club if you guys haven't done so already. If you are looking for a group of accountability partners, we meet every Tuesday on Facebook. We check in daily. Thank you, Akira. Thank you for tuning in. We check in daily and give each other accountability as far as doing our daily meditation, doing our workouts, and then we check in once a week and talk about our highs and our lows and our goals for the next week coming up. Also, if you guys would like an opportunity to promote something, you can do so on the show. Just DM me on Instagram and start off with the subject, Sunday Show, and you can let me know if you have a product or service that you would like to promote. And that's about it, you guys. If you want to get merchandise, like I showed you at the beginning, this little background is not letting me be great, but I've got my merchandise. You guys can see it on my website, chasingyancy.com/shop. You can see all the designs. You can also click the link in my bio on Instagram. So many of you guys have made purchases so far, and I'm super grateful, and I love the feedback. You guys have been saying that you really enjoy the artwork. I have more coming soon, actually, but I'm excited for the 4 designs that I do have listed for now. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for watching, and until next time, be sure to tell someone that you love them.